Welcome back to the KR Daily Transmission. My name is Kaia, and I'm here to talk about all things Sophia Code, sovereignty, and our incredible offering, Sophia Circle Journeys. So this week, I'm interviewing our amazing certified Sophia Circle leaders who have gone through our certification program to be able to facilitate a sacred space for you to walk through every chapter of the Sophia Code side by side with other community members, both online and in person, alongside as well with one of our certified Sophia Circle leaders. And today it is my great joy and pleasure to be introducing Chelsie Sullivan, who's joining us live from Rhode Island today. I've known Chelsie for a couple years now. It's been extraordinary to watch her personal development, both in her individual spiritual journey, as well as her rising up and becoming a certified Sophia Circle leader. We're going to have an incredible conversation today, lots of twists and turns that I bet you might be able to relate to some of what Chelsie is going to share with you today. And hopefully you're going to enjoy what a dynamic dialogue that we're about to have. So I'd like to take this opportunity and welcome you, Chelsie, to the KR Daily Transmission.
Yay, thank you, Kaia.
It's so good to have you here.
Thank you.
Can you remind me which cohort you were in?
The first.
So you were
2019.
This is so interesting to me because I've interviewed a few people now that were in the first, and it was like they were just finishing their first circle now. And I find that so interesting. And yesterday when I was interviewing, I think it was Andrea Spears, we had a great conversation, and the realization came over me of like what it must have been like to be in the first group that said yes to this. It had never been on the planet before. It was freshly downloaded from the Ascended Masters. There were so many questions as to what it really was. And you were a part of that group that broke through. And it was interesting for me because I remember thinking when we started leading the second cohort and the third cohort, I was like, why is it so much easier with each round of students? And it felt like less resistance. It felt like, it felt as though people were leading sooner. And I was like, and I never really took the time to fully sit with it. I just figured, oh, natural evolution. But after I talked to Andrea and we did this interview yesterday, I was like, no, these people were the bravest. They went the first, and maybe that meant they were breaking through the deepest stuff to come into this work. You know, maybe they were breaking through walls that were just so huge that then all of these additional cohorts of Sophia Circle leadership students were like, oh, this is so much easier for me because you went first. I'm curious, where does that land for you?
Well, this was a whirlwind for me.
Yeah.
I went to the 2018 conference in Sedona, and I signed up for Stargate 1.
There. Yes.
Yeah. So I did that over the winter, and then the leadership was coming out. And I had made this sort of internal pledge to myself that I would go as far on the journey with the Sophia Code as was available. We had also done the Mary Magdalene wings activation at that time. So she was really strong in my field, and her energy is what pushed me into saying yes to the leadership. Wow. So I finished that curriculum in May, and then the leadership started in June. And it took me a while to get through it. I did the first few chapters, and then I got stuck on Mary Magdalene, actually, and it took me a few months. Yeah. Yes.
I love that.
Yeah. So I finished it up right before I went on that trip that I was telling you about to the West Coast. Yes. And I joined you for the VIP and that first gathering that we had with all the leaders. That was a huge just initiation for me, that VIP immersive.
The one we did in the temple after the event. Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So I came back home, and I really strongly wanted to lead a circle, but it took me 6 months before I attempted to do that. And the first time I attempted to do that, it didn't go. There was just so much to move. I didn't have, like I said, this was my first professional spiritual offering. So my like following was not that strong. And so that was difficult. I had to kind of get over that. And then I tried it again in the fall. And I had the same experience again in the fall where it just didn't come together. I put some things out and it didn't come together. But my heart was really telling me that like this needs to happen.
Wow.
There was a very strong internal push. So what you're saying about resistance or moving a lot of things, I definitely resonate with that. It felt like kind of like moving a mountain. And I had this person reach out, and a few people reached out to me from the website actually during this time, but they just couldn't. Yeah, they weren't really ready to do the work. So the circle didn't start. But this one person said, I want to do this. I really want to do this. What do I have to do to make this happen?
And she wanted to do it with you, or she wouldn't have been saying those words to you.
It was actually an 81-year-old man.
That's extraordinary. I'm like, amazing. I have chills through my whole body right now. Please keep going. This is awesome.
It was unbelievable. So he approached me and and he said, well, what if, I said, well, I kind of need a few people to run the circle to make it like worth it for me to be able to support it. I have to create the altars. I have to do all this work. And he said, well, what if I were just to pay for 2 full spots? Like, would that make it happen? And I checked and I got a yes. So I said,
that's amazing.
I'm going to go forward.
Okay.
And there was actually one other younger woman who had reached out, and I approached her and said, hey, the circle is going. If you want to join, you can join. But she was much more wishy-washy. She said no at first, and then she said yes a week later. And it was like, well, okay, there's this, I had seen other leaders, there's like a 1-week grace period. So I said, okay, you can join. And she did join us, but there were always issues with her. She just was like, couldn't show up, or there were problems. And then when we got to Mother Mary, she had a very strong experience. She was crying like through the whole circle.
Whoa.
And then after that, she told me that she just couldn't handle it at this time.
Yeah. And, I find that happens with certain people that are in the 50-50 at the beginning of the Sophia Circle journey, because they already know somewhere in their heart, their future, that they're not going to be able to complete the journey.
Right. Right. So I learned a lot from that, just kind of what to look for. Yes. And what to ask people for my next circle, like
during the interview process.
Yes. For them to understand the depth of commitment that they are getting into, because I don't want to waste anyone's time, energy.
Well, and the fact that she got to the Mother Mary chapter, my God, that is like climbing Mount Everest for some people.
Yeah. And I felt perfectly good about it. It was really cool. Definitely like a leadership moment. I was grateful for that opportunity because I had to really dig deep and consider how I wanted to respond to her.
Yes.
In that.
And not react. Right.
So it's like, what is the thing to do here? So it taught me so much. And she considered what I said. And she said, I really can't continue. And I felt like I had done absolutely everything that I could do and should do to have her continue. And she made a sovereign choice that she needed to not. And then I felt very okay with that.
Yeah. And that's important. And, that's such an important moment of revelation in your, so like every journey you lead, you're going to learn more and more about why the Ascended Masters created the guidelines that they did. And it's interesting because, as we were talking earlier, you were part of that first cohort, the very bravest, most heroic human beings on the planet that said yes to Sophia Circle leadership before we even understood the whoa that was about to happen with the Sophia Code and our certified leaders and people finding the Sophia Code and getting activated with this blueprint. And I actually noticed that happen a lot with the first cohort in the interview process, where there was like, is it okay that I'm going to hold this line? That I confidently know the Sophia Code is going to shake up your entire reality. So you are either a yes or a no. Yeah. You're either a full body yes to all 13 gatherings, or you're a no, and no judgment, because you might be ready in 6 months. You might be ready in a year. You might be supposed to be going on this journey with some other leader. And, and it's like, all of that is welcome here, because the interview process is there to support both you and the clients of like, hey, you are making a sovereign choice. You're making a sovereign choice to completely transform your perception of yourself through your own sovereign divine light. Big deal.
Yeah.
Gonna rock every boat in your reality. And that's really cool that you got to experience that embodied wisdom. Now, if somebody's not a full body yes, it's not a yes to the journey, which means people who are really a yes, you're ready to bring them into your next journey.
Right.
So cool. And here you have such a beautiful comparison with, or juxtaposition, better word, like this young woman who's like, I don't know, maybe yes. And this other guy's like, I will pay for 2 seats for you to run this circle. Even if it's just me, they're sitting there. This is going to happen. How was it to experience 2 very different perspectives that way?
When we were together in the circle, it worked very well. The triad. So what ended up happening with the smaller circle is that I had to be a facilitator and a participant in the circle.
Yes.
So I was doing the journaling exercises with them, and then we would all get together and share, because that's how it has to be.
Well,
so
it creates more of a richness of the sharing. That's really cool that you identified that. And you're like, I'm jumping in. I'm going on the journey while I lead the journey.
Yeah, that's just the way that it had to go. So I kind of had the experience both of being a participant and a facilitator of the journey.
So cool.
So I loved having both of those people together. We were just all very compatible. So I didn't need to deal with personalities really, or discordant energies of any kind. Like, these were both people that really identified me personally from your website as the person that they wanted to be with. So
that makes me feel really good, because that's really my prayer for that directory, is that that the pictures are big enough so that people can connect with the eyes, this like the presence, their heart, the heart, your heart, and to be able to be like, that's the soul I'm supposed to go on this journey with. I love that worked for you.
Yeah. So I've had that. And I've also I was looking for someone on the East Coast, and I think I might be the only person in the Northeast in the directory right now. And I know that there are more coming, but that's been the other thing that has happened.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, because we have a huge following in New York. So that's really interesting. There's definitely more certified leaders, but they've chosen not to be, for whatever reason, they're not on the directory. We're changing the directory too, where it's going to be featuring people who are actively leading.
Right.
Yeah. Which I don't know why we didn't do that before, but that's what happens when you birth something new. You figure it out.
It's brand new. Right. Right. So finishing the circle just felt, I celebrated after. It felt like such an amazing accomplishment just to witness my journey from when I started with the Sophia Code to that moment was such a win.
Such a huge win. I mean, especially when you share about not only like what it was, tell us, what was it like when you found the Sophia Code? Where were you at your life? Who was the Chelsie that we get to meet the moment before the Sophia Code came into her reality?
I had a spontaneous awakening. I had always been awake as a child, but this at the end of 2015, there was like a lightning bolt that came in, and I had these latent gifts activated. So I had been catapulted into the world of the metaphysical, of DNA activation, even of star seeds. And that was sort of like the place that I went into. And that's where I was in 2018, kind of exploring that. I had been working at a job as an analyst that I had just left before I found the Sophia Code.
Wow.
Because it wasn't going to work anymore. Like, my energy in that was not going to be compatible. So I left. I found the Sophia Code, and I just, it was just such a huge yes for me. It was like new age dignity is the way that I think of it. It was like, this is all the things that I need to awaken within my memory, within my heart, within my own genetic DNA, and also the dignity and the like the wholeness that it was like kind of like coming home. Like the way I say it is like the Sophia Code is the home that my soul wanted to grow up in.
Oh, wow.
So I landed there. I went through the book. I did all the activations. I did them in a very regular way. Like I spaced a week in between each chapter. And when I finished it, I lost connection with all the people that I had been connected with, like my new sort of spiritual friends. We had a huge falling out. And within weeks, I went to the conference, the Sophia Code conference. In Sedona. Yeah.
More chills. You keep giving me chills, girl. I'm like, woo! Talk about that lightning.
It was like,
and let's ask that, that beautiful version of Chelsie. Like, what did she learn from that when you had found something that was lighting up your whole soul, and everyone that you thought was were your friends, and you were, what happened there for her? What did she learn?
Well, I went on a long journey of really personal healing, because the way that things had happened made me realize that I did not have complete awareness of what was going on within my energy system. So I kind of went into monk mode for a year where I was studying the Stargate 1 curriculum. So I started to build altars. I was like very insular during that time and doing just a lot of like internal reflection and downloading more and more of the activations from the Sophia Code. And
there was a purification process happening.
I actually shaved my head after that.
Did you post that on social media?
Yes.
I think I remember that.
Mm-hmm.
My God. Wow. This is such a cool and interesting conversation. It's so good to catch up with you. My God. So, all right. So it's so interesting that I'm having so many visions of a very similar moment in my life where I was almost like cleansing an entire chapter of my reality out of my reality. And I sat at my altar a lot, and I didn't go out a lot. And it reconfigured who I even wanted around me. And I know now, after years, that I was moving out of codependency and into my sovereignty, because the Sophia Code was coming through me, and it was the teachings were demanding that I lived the teachings, because the book couldn't be completed unless I was actively test driving the teachings on my own body, in my own life, in my own reality. So would you say that would be something similar, or how would you, is that?
Absolutely. It was kind of like a rebirth. Yes. And I awakened. So I went through that leadership training, and in 2020, it was actually the Ascended Masters that led me. I offered this like free offering and they said, this is in preparation for doing the Sophia Circle journeys. So I did that, and that was kind of the emergence. And then I went on the journey. I went to the VIP, and I needed another year to integrate the VIP. And I needed to actually adopt a yoga practice, like an Eastern yoga practice to help manage the energy that I have, like on my bodily level, on my mental level, and on my physical level. So like down here, so that I could actually manage the energy that was trying to come through. So that's kind of how I got to where I'm sitting in front of you today, was all those things.
So extraordinary, like so many similarities in our journey. It took me definitely 12 years of a yoga practice to be able to function with how much energy the Sophia Code brings into your body, because the Sophia Code it's invoking you to embody your divinity. That's no big deal.
It's kind of a huge deal.
It's a huge deal. And that is the science of yoga, the self-realization of your divinity embodied in the physical, not escaping this world, becoming so grounded with whether we call it Buddha consciousness or Christ consciousness, Source consciousness, Sophia Christ consciousness, these are all names pointing to the highest energy of the universe, that the human body is actually designed to hold within in this world as a chalice. And it's so amazing to witness how you are listening, how deeply you are listening. I'm sure that there was many moments that felt painful to listen that way.
Oh, there was a lot of painful moments.
Yeah.
A lot. Yeah, it was not an easy journey.
Oh my God. And I love that you shared that. And for those of you who are new to my work, for years, I would offer a VIP mentor experience, which has now shifted into these mentor experiences that only certified Sophia Circle leaders can participate in with me now. So I no longer offer that. But at the time, there's the very intense, very intense immersives where we were dancing with the lightning of Sophia Christ consciousness. And I would always wonder, after a VIP immersive, how people were going to integrate that kind of direct contact with Sophia Christ consciousness. And I always kept getting the message that for some people, it would take anywhere between a year to 2 years to integrate what happens in that learning container.
Yes.
And I love that you were able to name that out loud, because what that speaks to is what the human journey to Christ consciousness does take time to integrate. Because there's so much, there's so much releasing to even let it in. And then once you let it in, you're like, it changes how I see everything, all of reality. So I agree with you to have completed this your first Sophia Circle journey. And was this in person? This is a monumental victory for you that I am celebrating with you. So was this in person? Was it virtual? How did that go down?
It was a virtual journey.
Great.
And yeah, so he was from Maryland and I was here, it's very helpful. I really would love to do an in-person journey. And that's the way I had envisioned it when I was doing that part of the curriculum, was like, I'm going to do an in-person. And I had this vision of where it would be and all. But really the people that are magnetized to me and in this work in general, I think right now are spread all over the place.
Well, that's the blueprint of the Sophia Code. It didn't become a US bestseller. It became an international bestseller in 5 days. So it's always been a global movement. And even the first book signing at Mount Shasta, which I laugh at now because I didn't know what I was doing, producing my event in that little mountain town. I was like, oh my God. And over 100 people showed up and half of them flew in from around the world.
That's amazing. That's like an amazing story.
Like, and you could have heard a pin drop. The people were just so ready to be a part of this. And I love that you're tuning into that. Like, yeah, in person, wonderful, but I feel how people are going to be coming to me from all over across the country, all over the world. I love that for you. So what would you share with someone who may feel like, oh, I have never professionally led. I feel really intimidated. I don't know who would come to my Sophia Circle journey. Like, what would you say to them?
I would say just keep showing up to your daily practice, and a moment comes where the momentum that's created inside of you from that just moves you forward, and the answers will be there. It's kind of like the internal strength shows up for you to do the things that you need to do, and to not beat yourself up over resistances that come, and just allow it as part of the journey.
Because even when people did show up for that journey, you still experienced resistances.
Of course, there's always something new to learn.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. So Chelsie, share with me, who do you feel was your most supportive Ascended Master mentor while you were walking through the certification program?
Well, it was Mary Magdalene who led me to the gate. And Mother Mary is sort of my personal mentor when things come up. And I love the way she's been described as sort of standing behind you and making sure that things get completed that need to be completed. And I really need and appreciate and love her. The way that she mothers is very good for me. So I would name her there.
What stood out for you about the certification program, the leadership training? What would you share with somebody that's new to this certification program, wondering like, what is involved? Like, how am I going to feel? What is this going to bring forward for me?
Oh, I really loved how skilled I became from doing this program.
Beautiful.
So it really builds your trust. It kind of walks you to the gate of being able to do this on your own. So it's almost like being like birthed out of the program and into the world sort of feeling. And what I remember most was this moment where I realized that I could trust my ability to be with the Ascended Masters, to channel what they were trying to tell me through writing, because I would be nervous to do the activation steps thinking, I'm not going to get the answer. This is too hard for me. And every single time I finally got to the table, there would be something there.
Not only there would be something there, but I remember reading your, like when you would post your modules in the community forum and being like, whoa, hey, Chelsie. Wow. Like you were so articulate, and what you were sharing provided so much like insight and wisdom that it invoked other members in the community to start sharing at a new level. I liked that.
Wow.
So you felt, as I loved what you were sharing, that it birthed you through the program to feel as though you could stand on your own 2 feet and trust the process.
Yes. There were so many elements in there, like the being on camera and just being, picking a calendar date, like all these little things, the details that you might not think about could be challenging for you. You do them in the program. So it was a really, really great program. I loved it.
Thank you for sharing that. I was reading through some of my interview notes for you, and I saw that you shared that with every Sophia Circle gathering, because there's 13 gatherings in one journey, you felt your trust in the Ascended Masters grow stronger. Could you share a little bit more about that?
Yes. So with each journey, I'm creating an altar to that Ascended Master. And when we got to the key codes, I spaced my circles to have 2 weeks apart. And I just started to notice that as I was personally journeying with these Ascended Masters, my life was reflecting that the things that I was interested in, the people I would meet, everything that was coming to me through direct download, which is one of my ways that I receive, was just such in alignment with that Ascended Master that it was just these like, wow, it's like synchronicities over and over again. And each time I would have a circle, I would sit down, and we wrote some facilitators testimonials in the program, but I would do a fresh one for each circle because I wanted it to be like whatever was in the moment.
Yes.
And even if I thought that when I showed up to the table, like, I don't know if I feel this today, I don't know if this is going to work, the Ascended Master would be there for me and just drop in something that was like, bring tears to my eyes every time.
Mm-hmm. I love that, showing up to leadership even when we don't feel like it. That's why I mentor with Ascended Masters, because there's a lot of days I don't feel like showing up to lead, but then at the end of the day, I've discovered a whole nother part of my heart. There's the deeper connection to life and purpose. And because when we show up beyond our, how we feel about it, we discover how we actually really feel about leading.
Right.
Is that we love it.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Through all the fear and all the anxiety, we actually love to lead.
Amen.
Oh my gosh, Chelsie, this has just been such a wonderful conversation to have with you today. I love reconnecting with you. It's so amazing to see you on the other side of this incredibly heartfelt journey. Thank you for sharing so candidly today about your journey with the Sophia Code and becoming such an empowered and embodied certified leader. Would you like to share with us when your next virtual Sophia Circle journey is so that everyone can sign up and go on this journey with you? My God, this is just the best story ever.
Of course, I'm going to run my next virtual journey on June 10th of this year, 2022.
It's happening. It's been said. It's destined. So you can find out how to get in touch with Chelsie Sullivan, who's leading her circle out of Rhode Island, but it will be virtual. And she does have a prayer for in-person circles. So if you're on the East Coast, if you're in Rhode Island, be sure to email Chelsie as well about her future in-person circles. But for those of you who are ready to go on an incredible Sophia Circle journey through the Sophia Code, through every chapter of the Sophia Code with this beautiful woman inside and out, feel free to learn more about Chelsie Sullivan on my website at kaiara.com. You'll find her picture and her bio on the official Sophia Circle Leaders directory. And thank you again, Chelsie. This has just been so great to catch up. And I look forward to hearing about all of the miracles that are going to unfold starting on June 10th.
Thank you so much, Kaia. This has been a joy for me as well. Many blessings to you and to all.
Many blessings.